Hi, this is Dr. Scott Young, and today we're going to talk about what if I don't believe in NESARA? It's a series that I want you to kind of sit back and think about because some of you don't believe it. Some of you have heard some of the silliness. Some of you have heard other people who have been messing with your hope, and you don't know how to look at it. But we're first going to talk about how the debt actually cannot be accomplished. Coming right up. Okay, so some of you've been emailing me and communicating with me that X guy and Y guy and Z guy don't believe in NESARA, and they're causing a lot of consternation. Okay, and you're listening to an authority that talks about the reality of this. And I get it. I understand what you're doing, but you're struggling with one thing alone. Do not take Scott's words for it and put it out there and said, Dr. Scott said, and I was just having a conversation with someone on a biblical topic, and she said, other sources say, and yours is opinion. And I'm going, okay, do you understand? You use the rationale of authority. Authority doesn't mean it's true. They have to back up their truth with actual facts and figures. So that's what we're going to do with you today as you watch this. Okay? So what if I don't believe in NESARA? How can debt cannot be accomplished? Now, I do say this every time, and I'm gonna give you an explanation of something that happens to me almost every single time I say this. You cannot buy QFS crypto. I don't sell it. I don't care who you think you talk to. I have a person that thinks she talks to me every day, and she is not. She is talking to a faker who is faking me, which is the scam. They're scamming me like nobody's business. And they're doing this to quite a few truthers, okay? But here's the thing. I say to you, you can't buy it. It's already set up for you. You don't have to sign into it. You wait until NESARA occurs. Don't go off and do the stupid. And then I have people go, how do I set up my QFS account? I'm like, did you hear what I actually said? Did you listen to the video? Okay. So I'm going to get a little pissy there, but you need to understand, listen to what I'm telling you. Okay. Go to drscottyoung.com if you want to find out the exact social media sites so that you're not scammed. Okay. Now, let's show you a fascinating conversation. This is from the trucking industry. And I have a friend of mine named Katie, and Katie gives me wonderful information that is really powerful. So I'm utilizing Katie's stuff. Thank you, Katie. And what she's talking about, or what she was listening to in this conversation, is this. These are what are coming in to America right now. The number one and number two capital investment. So someone's buying this, right? Which is a massive firm. So if you got 4.3 and 1.56 billion, and then you have these other investments, these are top 10 announcement investments. Scout Motors. What are they doing? I'm not sure exactly who those are, right? And you got Nissan Foods. And really interesting, evac magnets. Like those are all electrical and alternative energies. This is what is shipped in because investors are predicting what you would want. Okay. They're predicting a demand. So what they do is pre-supply this demand. Now, let me back up into saying this, okay? Because I want to use something called the iPhone, okay? In 2006, you could buy a flip phone that has all the newest technology. I mean, it's the coolest, newest flip phone. You get all the different pretty colors, and you could get it for $20 or nothing if you signed up for another 2-year deal. But if you just want to have your same old plan, you could have paid $20 at pretty much at most, for the most part. Now, I walk into Woodland Hills Mall in Tulsa, and this is in '07. I have no idea. I'm not following this stuff at all. and we're on the upper level. I'm looking down at this new Apple store, and there's this long line. And I had already asked people, like, what are they doing? And they they looked at me like I was an idiot. Like, we're buying the new iPhone. I like, of course we're doing it. And this line went forever. And this is happening worldwide, or specifically America wide, but I'm pretty sure it was happening worldwide. So, and then Apple would only let 5 people in, and 5 people walked out. Now, that's not the huge issue, but they were paying $500 and people were clapping as they held up their bag. So $2,500 walking out the door and $2,500 is walking in, because they're all going to buy it, plus any other accoutrement that could come up. And you're going, so at least $2,500 coming in every few minutes. Like, how do I sign up for that gig? I mean, that is predicting a demand, but they had to create a supply, right? But they were actually under the supply that they really needed, because the demand went way higher than they ever predicted. Now, right now, in today, in 2023, this is 2024, but we're talking about last year's kind of stuff. We have this massive demand on electrical stuff, right? So these are these things that are coming into America. Now let's look on the demand side of this conversation. That was the supply. Now we're looking at the demand. When we look at the world demand, this is probably what they're looking at. Okay, when we look at world demand over a time frame, they've been seeing this kind of massive overtrend, and we're seeing almost doubling effects through different time frames on a world level. China is actually going pretty close to that, but then the curve flattens at in 2018. Europe, who makes some of the most amounts of those particular ones. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, Japan does a lot of them. China does a few of them. So they're actually shipping in a lot more. That's why you're seeing a higher amount of vehicle sales. But they're also the amount of vehicle sales. We're just talking about raw numbers. Well, China has, 1.2 billion people that almost no country can rival in the numbers. So the raw numbers are telling you like a little bit of a lie. This should be more of a percentage base, but still raw numbers, right? But we're talking about what happens with America. The orange line is America. And there is a minuscule jump from 2017 to 2018, and 2018 to 2020, and really beyond. They're not really rising, they're flattening in their sales. So there is there's an under demand with a massive supply chain problem. And I want to back up and just tell you a story that's been happening. And there's several car guys that I watch, and I love these kind of car guys because they will go on the lots and go, look at what they're doing. And there is a new term, and I blanked it out, so don't ask me what it is. And some of you might know it. If you want to type it in, please do. But they're going onto the CarMax lots, and there's a massive oversupply of cars, which, by the way, didn't happen because they wiped out the supply in 2020. And this is a COVID kind of response. Now, so in Symptom, they went off and said, well, we're going to build a ton more. And the answer is, you got scammed like nobody's business, and you were stupid. Now, I'm not talking about the people. I'm talking about capital investors, and capital investors still haven't learned from their idiocy. I'm telling you, they haven't learned from anything yet. And so that's why macroeconomists and microeconomists are missing the boat so dramatically. And this is part of the feature that we have to look at. And so on these lots, there's a strange thing that happens, a repossession from another dealership. Now, by the way, dealerships can go in and out of business all the time, okay? And normally those dealerships are one of two possibilities. Like the father passes away or he retires, and the son, daughter takes over the dealership, and that person just isn't up to snuff. Happens a lot of the time on big businesses that are taken over by the son, or the daughter. And they're just not up to snuff to be able to do it, where dad had all the passion to run this thing greatly and the kid runs it into the ground. That's one possibility. The other possibility that also happens is just bad business processes that happen in used car dealerships. So it can be repossessed off the lot. But normally when it happens that way, there are a few that repossessed and then there's a flood of them. Did you hear what I just said? There will be a few that's repossessed and then a massive flood. We are about to see the massive flood coming because on CarMax's lot, that is only a used dealership, they're having a new car, not a demo. A dealer demo is actually discounted. I mean, I've bought a demo before, a $5,000 mile car that is way over that number and is classified as a demo point. And you can get massive discounts over the years. You can always find these really amazing discounts that just the demo was driven by, the manager. The problem is that you have no idea if that manager is driving it nicely or what. And sometimes they don't care about the car, and then you could have a lot of problems because of that. But not always with that too. Now, these are new cars, so they're not dealer demos. I mean, they might have 15 miles on it, but it's coming off the lot because the bank is repossessing it, and CarMax is walking in and going, oh, we'll buy it. Now, then you buy it, and now it's technically a used car. And then it's actually a used car that comes off of the CarMax lot, and you are undervalued from that car. The value, the devaluation that happens on new cars is dramatic over the years. But now we have a massive amount of devaluation of that car. So whatever you paid for it, you absolutely overpay. And CarMax is trying to come up with a profit ratio. They have a particular ratio that's actually worked over the years. And now it's not working anymore. Okay? And this is the problem we're seeing out here. But let's go to even a slightly different set of features here. I just want you to look at this. This is over a time frame. So this is over a time frame of the amount, the total index peak before the freight recession. Okay, so from the top point of the recession point to the bottom of that particular type of situation. So this is a real weird set of things. For instance, fracking from 100% in 2014 to the end of it, from their time frame 100%, they're barely down even 1% when fracking goes down as a bust. The blue line here, this dark blue line, are tariff things, and it only goes down by 2%. So almost all of these lines are not even going down up here, anything less or more than 4%. Now there's a little dip here in what's called the current market points. These are what is happening with these inclines of shipping. So other things didn't affect shipping. And yet we have people who are like psychotic in their amount of shipping, because here's some of the things that we need to look at. Even the Gulf War had a dip of maybe 6%, but then backed up and got up to good ratios because of the Gulf War. But look at three things I want you to see here. The global financial crisis goes from 100% down to 80%. That is a massive change in purchase power or purchasing. This is just how much do people purchase. That orangish line here is interest rates from the Great Recession timeframe. And then the oil shock. So you're seeing massive changes, but yet they're not tracking in the same way. This is an ugly, ugly problem. Then we see that Americans have lost 7.2% of their purchasing power since 2021. Now, you believe in Biden? Let's say you are a Biden fan. Well, I'm telling you right now, that proves that his economic features are a complete wash. And yet, I'm telling you, Trump takes over You have to answer for me. How is he going to fix that? We have a massive overstock of inventory of different types of things, of almost everything that is massively over inventoried with a massive overpricing, and yet people cannot spend for them. And it gets worse and worse every day when companies can't do that, when they have too much stock and they don't have enough. They have way too many employees for that amount of stock. Normally, their supply tells them how many employees that they might need. Now, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're stupid about that, and they over hire for that particular company. And yet, what we're seeing is the woke policies and all of the other issues that they used to believe were helpful for them, the DEI, the ESG kinds of standards that help them move from a global standard, in the double standard of the Soros kind of responses, are are getting put through a wringer and a washer in essence. And yet, what that means is that now they're having to let go of people. And every time you let go of people, you have more and more problem with purchasing power because more and more people don't have any money. And no one wants to talk about these things, right? And here's a fascinating one. The corporate businesses and their debt and loan securities. So debt securities are like short-term. They're basically short-term liabilities. So what happens is a company will go in and buy a $50 million security, okay? Whether it's they're doing on a short or a long, up to its maturity date. Sometimes they short some particular stocks. They buy it early so they can sell it. They buy 50 million, they sell it for 60 million, they pay back the 50 million that they owed, and they take that 10 million and recapitalize it. Okay? Or they have a loan. So they're buying to expand. This is when happens with debt issues. And people ask me all the time, and I say to you this: there are debt cycles of an economy. And the debt cycle starts from, 50, 60 is no difference. 60 to 70, no difference. Now we see a massive difference, a doubling effect in how much debt was happening in the early 80s. But then, early 70s to 80s. Actually, it was more in the later 70s. And this is the great inflation crisis point that we we're talking about earlier. And it went on all the way through Reaganomics. It's fascinating. Reaganomics was very good, but it created more debt. And so there's a problem with some of the Reaganomics we're going to have to re-look at down the road. Now, here's the funny thing. Poppy Bush actually flattened that line. I'm not sure why, possibly because the first Gulf War that people weren't spending money on. And then we have a jump in the Clinton era and an even greater jump, massive over jump in the Obama era, and even up through Trump, it's going through the roof. Now, Trump knew this was going to happen. I believe Trump knew about this kind of thing right here. He was probably thinking about it in this time frame. And the systems could not afford this amount of debt. And I keep saying to you guys, do you understand? Corporate debt is way worse than you ever imagined. This is when you're at bankruptcy. Now, when nations bankrupt, they actually go into the complete tanker. Okay? They're in the toilet. And the toilet's backed up and you can't fix it. Now, I want to show you, this is just from January of 2019 through April of 2024, okay? So a certain standard of living. So it's very, very consistent here through January of 2020. It goes up. Here's COVID changes. This is massive amount of money that would be needed. The standard of living was drained out of the people. So this is when they stole out a whole bunch of money. The Walmarts, all the big companies stole money left and right. Now the party ends. It's very interesting. What people don't realize, the party ended. This is the payback of the world going, well, we don't have any money now. And then Biden gets in office. There's another amount of jump here, and it's really chaotic level of jump. And Now people are spending, it takes much more of their standard. Now, here's the thing. What they did is they were spending here. Now they're not spending. And so their savings and their abilities to spend. So there's these jumps that happen. And when those things happen, you're wiping out your ability to spend. And then the percentages go down to ugly, ugly levels. Meaning we are, 5% difference in just the spending issues. And that isn't even what inflation really is. It's way higher than this. Okay? This is, now please turn it up a little bit. I mean, I can't always turn it up. I'm turning up as loud as she can go. Do you see I'm as loud as you can go? Turn up your volume as loud as you can go. I've already loaded this as far as I can do, but this is a TikTok. It's really kind of cute. So this is Yellen telling you, and I'll do it a couple times so you can hear it.
Americans, both those who are well off and those who are near at the bottom of the income distribution, are better off now that wages have risen more than prices.
Okay. What she said is that from the top to bottom of the income structure of people, with wages going up and prices going down, they're better off. Listen to it again and listen to what she's trying to say. And this is how stupid they hope you are.
Americans, both those who are well off and those who are near at the bottom of the income distribution, are better off now that wages have risen more than prices.
Wages have risen more than prices. No, and she admits that prices are gone up. Oh, but wages have gone up, and so that you're okay. And the answer is no. I just showed you the symptoms of that point out there. Now I'm going to show you from a world standpoint here too. When Macron loses out in his party, look at the euro. Now we're talking about the debt, the inflation debt points that happened just because of the value of the euro. Euro had one of the strongest currencies in the world, and yet not even, days into it, it tanks in value. It goes massively down. That is scary, scary stuff. Just over a party's defeat. That tells you that those parties are tied to the fiat. Now, when a nationalistic kind of government comes in, the people win. Look at what happens in Argentina. They have inflation problems, right? Some inflation problems. It spikes dramatically, and then it pulls back to a massive level when you get a good guy in there who is nationalistic and goes, I'm going to fix some of this stuff. Financially does it. Now, the reality is that Argentina, this is where people say, well, this is what Trump would do. And they think I'm answering that question with that too. And I go, no, that doesn't answer it, because you haven't fixed the supply and demand, and you haven't, even though you've changed the inflational rates, and you can do that a little. Sorry, let me pull this off here. You can do that a little bit here, but you can't do it enough to affect the whole economy. That just fixed some of inflation. But by the way, inflation was a problem here. The economy in Argentina was bad here. So it's not just inflation, but it does say that that a right nationalistic president makes a difference. The people do have a win out there. But I want you to talk, I want to show you this. This is a fascinating statement out there too. I just want to show you, this is just this is Mayo Clinic's symptom checker. So there's the symptom, and so you can click on one of the symptoms, and I just clicked on one of them, abdominal pain in children. And then there's our root factors, cramping, and you would click on those, and then you can learn the possible causes. Now, you're going to say, what are you talking about? I'm going to bring this off the screen here for a second, because I want to talk here for a second. Okay. Now, I'm not a physician, but I am an audiologist trained in medical stuff. One of the most overdiagnosed audiological disease points that happen, and it happens with ear, nose, and throat physicians that complain about the same problem, is that general physicians, GP, or PCPs, primary care providers, what they will do is they will tell patients they have Meniere's disease. And I go, and as soon as if I said this in an audiology convention, they will go, ah. And you're going, why? Because no one follows the symptomatology of Meniere's disease. Meniere's disease has a one-ear hearing loss that is episodic, meaning going up and down, only happens for an episode and then goes down. You have massive roaring tinnitus that happens in the one ear, but again, along with the symptom of your hearing change. And thirdly, and this is really, really important, is massive dizziness issues. But we're not talking about just dizziness. We're talking about vertigo, spinning issues that will make you puke your guts up. Okay? And so you have to have those three things, and they all come and then they go. And you have to have actual diagnostic kind of things that you have to do. It's actually even related to the hearing loss, and you're looking at what happens. You need to see it in the symptom point, so the patient actually needs to fully do this. You need to see this, but I see this overdiagnosed all the time, and physician tells them, and then they walk around telling all their friends and family, "I've got Meniere's disease," and I go, "No, you don't." And then they're like looking at me like I'm the idiot, and I go, "Listen, we can look at a diagnosis based upon symptoms." Now, let's use that and let's expand that a little further. The world has been trying to rip away your ability to understand symptoms. COVID comes out, and it is a viral event, which means a virus is a tiny, tiny little bitty little thing. And then you put on this little face shield or masky thing, and you're going to stop it. I go, well, that didn't stop it because it can't stop it. They're not even on an N95 mask. It's never actually fit really well. I see people wearing it down here, and I'm going, you didn't fit that correctly. If you even want to wear your mask, you're not even using it correctly. And then they pull it down to talk to someone, and well, you just infected everyone if you want to talk about that too. But you're infecting through the mask, right? Okay. And then 6 feet away, which is another conversation of Satanism issues, but 5 feet away, 7 feet away, why not 8 feet away? Why not 10 feet away? Why is it 6? And why is it that little thing? So if you're in every single type of one where there's a massive pandemic point, for instance, Contagion, 2013, but every zombie movie is another type of that kind of mentality. Your point when you're in a pandemic to protect myself, right? I don't care about anyone else. Just get away from me. Don't impinge upon my life. Protect me. Okay? But how come everyone cared what I was doing? I mean, I can show you video after video after video after video of some dude chasing after a woman who's not wearing a mask, but he's wearing a mask and shaming her. I'm like, if you're scared, you would wander away. If you're really scared, you go, wait a second, there's another agenda point here. And then they moved forward and they said, well, get the little jabby things, right? So get the 2 jabs. And if you get the 2 jabs and you wear your mask and you do all the things, you should be fine. And yet then there was this weird thing called breakthrough virus. Never existed in the history of the world, but no one wants to talk about that one either. I mean, I asked the question when I first heard of breakthrough virus in 2022. I'm like, what the flock is that? And yet, because we have people who are good people, and they just like heard the thing. So science tells you that you have a breakthrough virus. I'm like going, you can't have a breakthrough virus. That means the vaccine was inappropriate, ineffective. Like, it didn't work. Okay, well, why didn't you say that? No, we need to get more and more. And then they said something that messed me up even further. And they said asymptomatic. And so people started repeating that. Now, I just showed you how any single physician, medical provider of any level actually looks at a symptom to get a diagnosis. A diagnosis. You actually, when you see a patient and you put the codes in, their particular CPT codes, and they kind of change over the years. You put a CPT code, you have to actually put a diagnosis that you said, right? So the Meniere's disease, I would put all the different tests that I ran. I'm billing it out to the insurance, but I have to tell them the diagnosis. Now they're going to look at the diagnosis. Does that match up with the test potentials? And then they're random on how they pay this stuff too. So that's another conversation, right? But what did I just tell you? Now let's use medical background. So I'm going to tell you why I do what I do and how I do it. Oops, sorry. We're going to go backward here. These symptoms are sitting in front of you. Savings have been drained. Corporate debt, way overburdened. People, their purchasing power, not just their savings is drained, but their purchasing power is like off the chart. They can't possibly pay for things. These idiots are bringing in way too much supply to equal the demand because they're not looking at interest rates or other. Forget about the oil one, but a global financial crisis and interest rates. Those two things are happening all at once, and to historic levels, and yet they're still shipping in too much crap. And yet sales, I said to you, sales are not happening. And yet the number one amount of incoming vehicles or incoming type of shipping are all in their particular genre that they want you to believe in. And I go, do you understand the symptoms? You took the symptoms and you came up with the wrong conclusion. What we're seeing are complete morons telling you that NESARA can't happen. I'm telling you, the debt is unpayable. You come to a place, and as a person who was in business debt, like up to my, eyebrows, at 90% debt to income ratio, there is a place of time. There's a place in time you go, oh, I'm done. And many of you have been there before. Well, what happens when a whole economy that's hooked into the world and the American economy goes down, the rest of the world goes down? This is what Trump tells you about. So if that actually is a problem and we're not paying attention to the problem, how do you fix it without having to make something that kills all of the debt? And by the way, that's what NESARA does. So I'm trying to tell you, I used A plus B equals C. These are logic kind of points. When you see those logic areas, I didn't use my authority based upon it. I used the actual figures and the actual responses that are out there showing you the debt is unsustainable. We just can't have Trump walking in without NESARA and say, well, NESARA, he's not going to use NESARA. Like, I'm telling you, NESARA is all about debt forgiveness. That's one of the main features that are out there. And I'm going to be picking out little pieces of them and showing you the evidences that give us that conclusion, right? Or the symptom tells me the diagnosis, which tells me the treatment pattern. Now tell me that if we have a whole bunch of idiots that are off of they're not looking at the symptoms, they don't know the diagnosis, so they can't come up with the treatment pattern, and I'm showing you by billions and billions of dollars they're doing from an economic level. Are you sure that NESARA isn't right? Because guess what? This is a global financial crisis that isn't even close to 2007. This isn't even close to 1989. Or 87. It isn't close to 71. It isn't close to even 29. It is a level that has never existed in the history of our country, for instance, American country, but it's not actually existed in any country. Everything is lining up for something even more interesting. And that's what I want you to see in here. So I hope you like where we're going here. If you have suggestions of particular why I don't believe in NESARA, and that you want me to address, happy to get into those. Leave those comments below, and happy to jump into them. Thanks so much.